Rudy is coming, but I don't know if on time. Great.
Thought you were going to be AWOL.
It's 4:30 right now. Is Rudy plan on coming?
Yes.
Okay. Should we wait just a minute? Because executive session's kind of important, so. Check, check. Check, check. All right, that worked. Calling the meeting to order. So let's say the pledge in English and in Spanish. If we could bring those up, that'd be great. All righty. Next is the approval of the agenda. Any comments and or changes that you would like to see?
Recommend we approve the agenda.
Okey dokey. Okay. Hey, Bubs, we're approving the agenda. You want to do it with us? Okay. So all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none opposed. Now it is time for us to go into executive session. So Secretary Garcia, would you like to head us in there?
Yes, Mr. President, board members, I'd like to take us into executive session as a motion where we discuss threat or pending litigation as well as limited personnel matters.
I'll go ahead and second. And any discussion on moving into executive session? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Oh, and also let the record show that we're all here tonight, all five of us. So we are now in executive session, and the regular meeting will reconvene at 5:30.
Relations request by members of the community who would like to address the Board of Education. I will be at the back of the room if you so desire assistance with translation. Buenas tardes, Presidente Carrillo, miembros de la Junta Escolar y doctora García. Mi nombre es Mario Salvidres. Ayudaré con cualquier solicitud de traducir de los miembros de la comunidad que desean dirigirse a la Junta de Educación. Estaré en la parte de atrás de la sala si ustedes desean ayuda con traducción. Gracias.
Thank you very much. And it gives me great joy to introduce our next item, and this is the chorus at Acequia Madre School, who I've had the pleasure of listening to in the past. I want to acknowledge also Catherine Keener. How long have you been with the district? Seventh year, because we met when you were at Atalaya, doing much of the same that you do now. And wherever you go, music programs seem to flourish, and kids seem to be joyful. So I just want to thank you just so much for what you do. And I'm very happy to know you and that you're with the district. And to her right is Miss Leanne Devon, our Director of Music Education for Santa Fe Public Schools. And in the last, I've been on the board 8 years, and I can say that in all those 8 years from the time you joined us, I mean, our programs have just skyrocketed. Not only the vocal programs, but everything related to instruments in the schools, and kids going on to Santa Fe Youth Orchestra. And just, Leanne, thank you for your commitment to our children. And and I always state, when it comes to arts and music, for all of us here at the board, we consider it core curriculum. We will never, ever, ever, I think as long as us are taking breath, cut those programs as they've had to do in the rest of the country. So, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to acknowledge first year at Sequia Madre, Kathy Casaus, and it's been a
Our
great
principal
year.
there, yeah.
Principal.
It's been a fun year. So I'm going to let Ms. Keener introduce the works that her kids are going to perform. But so without further ado, let's get on with it. Let's get on with the show.
Thank you, boys and girls. We're so proud of you. I thought we had a riveting agenda tonight, and that's why we had so many people here. But they're
Yeah.
obviously here to see the kiddos, right?
That's going to
They
change.
were great.
So I hope all of you consider keep singing. Keep singing. There's so much joy in your hearts. And be at Santa Fe High School and Capitol because they have great choirs also.
Well, I'm going to be staying over here because we're going to be going back
Right.
and forth with photographs and whatnot. Now, not everyone that I'm announcing is here tonight.
We have
for
still more, we
awards.
still have some more board announcements.
Oh, I apologize.
That's right. And so board announcements. Ms. Cashman.
If you haven't cast your vote for the education technology note, you have until 7 o'clock tonight to go to the county clerk's office. But I want to thank everyone that came out to vote, close to 30% of last count. So that's a big improvement. And so I'm hoping people supported us, but I'm glad that people got out and voted. And I'd like to thank the superintendent and her staff for all the hard work you did in this new mail-in election. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll have good news later on tonight.
Thank you. And Ms. Noble?
Thank you very much. I wanted to bring a message from the Gonzales Community School community, who, of course, I think we all know the tragedy and the tragic accident that unfortunately befell one of the families there. And the message from Gonzales, though, has been that the district's response has been extraordinary, and that in helping that school and the staff and the families that are there manage the grief has been really beyond what could have been expected. And that is both from the district staff and from other schools. Aspen, Cesar Chavez has showed up to feed the staff, and at Gonzales, who has, of course, been dealing with a lot because they're holding the children, the families, the parents, really everybody. And there's obviously a lot of emotions surrounding the passing of Dominic and Jeremiah Archuleta. Anyway, Dr. Garcia, to your staff, and I hope that you will pass on. I know that the Gonzales community has been doing it as well, but to many of the schools that have stepped up to support Gonzales, it's been really the best anything can be in such horrific circumstances. So thank you for, and to Sue O'Brien and the wellness team. I think they were really an instrumental part of it. And, you know, the principal, Dr. Flint, even said she's worked in 6 districts. And unfortunately, there have been tragedies in every single one, but that no district has been as exceptional in its response and support as this one. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Noble. Additional now, was your hand up? No? Okay. Additional board announcements? And hearing none, we'll go on then to superintendent announcements.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Lots of announcements today. It seems like every board meeting, the excellence that is exhibited in the Santa Fe Public Schools makes us all very proud of our school district. And so the first, and I'm going to announce the award. If you are here, raise your hands and perhaps maybe come forward, and then I'll talk about you. We'll present you with the certificate and take a photograph. Does that sound good? So the Teamwork Championship Award and VEX-IZ Excellence Award for elementary school. This was in robotics. And 5 robotics teams composed of 14 students from Pinon Elementary School represented the district at this competition in Las Cruces on February 16th. And I believe there is the team from robotics team right here. So why don't you guys go forward, and I'm going to talk about you, and then the board will maybe start making their way down for a photo. So one team comprising of Antonio Pell, Connor Krennick, and Manuel Urioste were awarded the Teamwork Championship Award and the Elementary Excellence Award. This has earned them a spot to represent New Mexico at the 2019 VEX Robotics World Championship VEX IQ Challenge Elementary School Division on April 28th through the 30th, representing the state of New Mexico. So let's give them a round of applause. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have them back from winning at the National, right? So good luck representing New Mexico. Our wrestling team finished 7th overall at the state tournament yesterday, but Adam Pena is a state champion in the 120-pound division, and Miguel Padilla is a state champ in the 126-pound division. Are they here today? Okay, so congratulations to them. And then we have a National Merit Scholarship Corporation finalist. And Ella Nichols and Max Lyons, are you here? So I'm going to talk about them. Santa Fe High School seniors Ella Nichols and Max Lyons are finalists for the National Merit Scholarship. High school students enter the National Merit Program by taking the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. Ella and Max are among 15,000 finalists nationwide. Winners of the Merit Scholarship are chosen for the finalist group based on their abilities, skills, and accomplishments. Notifications began in March and ended mid-June. Okay, the next one, so let me see. Santa Fe High School student Sophia Snyder finished 7th in the state swim meet. Are you here? And Santa Fe High School's boys basketball team and our regular season district champs. So congratulations to Santa Fe High. And I'm so excited about this one because I love to see academic awards as well. Santa Fe High School chess team placed 3rd at the state high school chess tournament. Anyone here from Santa Fe High chess team? Yay, all right. Santa Fe High School chess team placed 3rd at the 2019 NMAA State High School Team Chess Tournament on February 21st to 22nd. The team beat Alamogordo on February 21st. 5 boards to 1, advancing to its championships on February 22nd. The team played Albuquerque Academy in the 2nd round, winning 2 matches and losing 4, and played Rio Rancho in the 3rd round, winning 4-2. Congratulations, Santa Fe High Chess Tournament. So we'll give you the certificate. Sorry, didn't mean to be stepping on you. I mean, so many awards, right? But the kids just keep winning. What can we say? 62 medical students participated in the HOSA State Leadership Conference in Albuquerque. HOSA is the Future Health Professionals, is a student organization at Capitol High School. Students competed in various health-related events with the opportunity to qualify for the international competition in Orlando, Florida. 42 out of 62 of our students qualified. Our members also won the Spirit Stick Award amongst all schools attending. So if you're here from Capitol High HOSA, where are you? Look at this sharp group. Come on up and let's get a certificate. I'm going to step on you, huh? Boy, do they look sharp. Okay. Let's see. I still have more, do I not? Announcements. Am I done with awards, though? So I have more announcements and introductions, but I think this is it for awards. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. Anybody here waiting for an award? Anybody else? Did anybody else do anything extraordinary? All right, I'm going to go up and finish my announcements. So I will continue my announcements. Out-of-state travel, Santa Fe High School, NJ ROTC to San Diego, California, March 15th and the 22nd for the annual military orientation trip. JROTC activity account will be paying for the bus. The U.S. Navy is covering lodging, and students cover their meals and incidentals. Santa Fe High School track and field team to Chandler, Arizona, March 21st to the 24th for a track and field invitational competition, no cost to the district. Elementary Band Day, Thursday, April 11th at 5:30 p.m., Milagro Middle School. About 200 students will attend and perform across various grade levels. Would welcome from the board like to attend and host. Welcome students and families to the event on my behalf, I guess. I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't know why it says that, but you're all welcome to April 11th at 5:30 at Milagro. Oh, I know why. There's a conflict that night. It's Volunteer Appreciation Night from 5 to 6, so you might be wanting to split up your time between those two events. I'd also like to introduce our new elementary art coordinator, Cristina Gonzalez. Where are you, Cristina? Cristina Gonzalez is a practicing artist, arts educator, and arts administrator with over 20 years of commitment to individual and community empowerment through creative public programs. Trained as a painter, Christina's creative work explores the beauty and contradictions of the mestizaje. Her artwork is in the collection of the Carlsbad Museum of Art, the Anderson Museum of Contemporary Art, the New Mexico Capital Art Foundation, the City of Santa Fe, the State of New Mexico, and the National Hispanic Cultural Center, among others. Cristina was the founder of the Visual Arts Department at New Mexico School for the Arts. New Mexico's first residential state chartered high school for the arts. She has also worked at the Santa Fe Institute, Santa Fe Community College, New Mexico Highlands University, and Santa Fe School for the Arts and Sciences. And I could go on and on about her, but she received her BA from Yale University and her MFA from the University of Washington in Seattle. Fabulous credentials. We're so excited to have you. Welcome to the Santa Fe Public Schools. And then this is super exciting. Could there be even more exciting news? Inside Out, the People's Art Project. Inside Out, the collaborative global art project, is coming to Santa Fe. Inside Out is described as a global platform for people to share their untold stories and transform messages of personal identity into works of public art. Inspired by the artist J.R., the project features large format street pastings of portraits that make a statement. Each Inside Out around the world is documented, archived, and exhibited online. Over 260,000 people have participated in 129 countries. Santa Fe's project is a collaborative between the Master's Program and Salazar Elementary School. The creative vision for Santa Fe is to bring children together to express what I want to be when I grow up. It highlights the critical truth that Santa Fe students are our future. Students have been working on this project since September 2018 and have sent out nearly 100 requests for sponsorship. Their efforts have yielded a venue of more than 50% of the required fundraising. Salazar hosted a brief informational meeting in December. It talks all about the zoning, but this is going to be an amazing presentation. All participating students will soon have their photographs taken by a local photographer who has donated his time and materials. Digital files will be sent to the Inside Out headquarters, where they will be printed in large size, about 2 by 4 feet. And this will be up here in the city of Santa Fe. I'm not sure exactly about the exact location, but the remarkable public exhibit taking place in the heart of Santa Fe will demonstrate to all who observe it that students have hopes and dreams for their future and will positively impact our city of tomorrow. So it's really exciting for Salazar and for the Santa Fe Public Schools. And then re-envisioning New Mexico's statewide assessment system, PET is developing a new statewide assessment transition plan as requested by Governor Lujan Grisham and Lieutenant Governor Morales by August 2019. In March, the partnership with NMSU PED will convene 7 community conversations to gather stakeholder input. They want to hear from everyone: students, parents, educators, businesses, organizations. Santa Fe will host one of the sessions in this boardroom on March 6th, tomorrow, from 4 to 7 in the boardroom. So next in April, the PED Secretary, Karen Trujillo, will convene a statewide Student Success Task Force to consider feedback. Nominations of education stakeholders for the task force are being accepted through March 30th. Appointments will be made by April 10th. The task force will publish a statewide assessment transition report in 2 phases. Phase 1 will make a recommendation for math and English language arts for spring 2020, and Phase 2, long-term discussion of what our assessment will look like beyond 2020. So anyone watching, anyone in the audience, board members, you may want to come tomorrow to give your input, or if you're interested in serving on the task force, I would recommend that you submit your application. Ms. Noble.
Ms. Noble.
Is that information available electronically anywhere? That's the kind of thing that's really good for social media.
Yeah, we can. I would imagine Assistant Superintendent Gephardt, we can get that posted and out.
Is that it? Okay. That concludes the superintendent announcements, and which brings us to the next item on the agenda, student board announcements. And Mercedes, if you'd like to begin with Capitol High School.
Okay, so DECA, the Business Pathway Student Association, attended the state competition this past week, and our DECA chapter won the 2019 New Mexico Chapter Membership Award, which is the award for the biggest membership increase in the state. And our DECA students had many individual wins, with our senior student, Alfredo Ochoa, qualifying for the national competition this summer, where he will be representing Capitol High School. And then last week, we held our second free ACT testing for students, for juniors and seniors. And then we have our HOSA. And then our boys basketball team will play in the first round of state this Saturday at El Dorado High School at 5. And 2 of our teachers, Jennifer Vakovich and Brandon Godell, were honored last week by the state for becoming 2019 National Board Certified Teachers.
Thanks. Yeah. And Mr. McGinnis?
I'll be honest, I don't have much thunder left after the superintendent announcements. However, our culinary arts department did take 3rd place overall last week, so they definitely deserve a mention for their laudable work. Beyond that, there really isn't anything else to report.
Well, then I will extend yours by saying the Santa Fe High School got a 4th seed in state. So they're playing at home on Saturday night, 7 o'clock. And if any of you out there had the chance to, where it was a Santa Fe High playing Capital on last Saturday night at 7, they had to bring down both upper tiers of the gym. And while the paper said maybe 3,000 people, there were easily 3,500 people there. It was insane, and it was so much fun. And so if you're able to go to either of the games, Capital at El Dorado and at 5, or if you're able to go to Santa Fe High School playing Manzano, Híjole, for the 4th time this season. It seems like we're constantly meeting. But Santa Fe High is fantastic, and both teams have very high hopes. Whichever one wins, or if both win, we're playing in the pit on Wednesday the 13th. So this is a big deal, you know, getting these kids playing in the pit and doing as well as they are this year. And so thanks very much. And I know we're going to have some JROTC announcements coming soon, because it seems like any time they compete, they either win state or nationals. I mean, they are so good. So if you ever have a chance also to see our ROTC, it's just exceptional what these kids do. And then the scholarships that we find out they're receiving in May, it's really something. So any additional student board announcements? Okay. Ms. Noble.
Dr. Garcia, we were discussing as we went down there that we think all of the robotics winners and all of the health students should get their own certificates, just before we forget.
Great. And so I don't see, well, public forum next. I still don't see, is Ms. Mayor here tonight, or anyone from the union? Oh, you'll be good. I just wanted to make sure we had somebody. Fantastic. So the next item on the agenda then is public forum. Dr. Ryan, has anybody signed up for public forum tonight?
President Carrillo, members of the board.
Hold on just one second. Yes.
I just, you know, that we had our principal from Salazar here, Julie, and if you want to introduce people from the project. That's really going to be a big deal when you see that project. I don't know if you've seen them around the, you know, pictures of that around the world with those big giant, they're like, well, they're not really posters, but they're.
The portraits are like 30 by 50 inches of individuals. And the statement is to highlight education and highlight the future of students at Salazar Elementary. And the plan is to put it up in the rail yards. We're still working with the city and the historical review board. But we have sort of an angel in terms of a gallery down there that's supporting us. And so the plan is to have it in the rail yards go up sometime around May.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thanks for being here. And Dr. Ryan?
President Carrillo, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, we have one speaker on the public forum tonight, Teresa Martinez.
Terrific. Don't go, you don't have to read all the rules. Just, Teresa, be nice. There you go. Be nice. You have 3 minutes, but since there's one of you, if you go over, it's not the end of the world.
President Carrillo, you must recognize us from previous meetings when we were here in the past to express concerns. So we thought it only fitting that we show up today and thank you for some of the work that's been done at Pinon Elementary. I want to point out that we have members of the Parent Educator Service Club, which is the equivalent of a PTA group at Pinon, and the School Advisory Council, And we also have many parents here that have successful students in robotics that also serve on the committees or show for our meetings. So if you don't mind, I just want to read the letter.
Of course.
And then I'll leave it for Ms. Board Member Price, and I've given Janice one, and I have one for Dr. Garcia as well. Dear Ms. Price, what a success. Thank you for listening and taking action to ensure that the capital and maintenance improvements program for Pinon Elementary occurred. The playground is simply beautiful and functional. The work has alleviated the flooding issues previously experienced in heavy storms. The improvements meet the needs of our school population. We went from daily issues with arguments and confrontations between students to no behavior issues during recess and lunch. On behalf of the SAC, the PES Club, the staff, and the students, I wanted to extend a heartfelt thank you for the improvements made to Pinon Elementary School. We no longer worry for the safety of our Pinon community due to the better lighting and the accommodation of our students with medical exceptionalities and/or disabilities. Thank you for the playground equipment and the separation of the playground area to accommodate our students by grade levels. Additionally, the bare area previously home to the infamous portables has been serviced and is now usable. Thank you, exclamation, exclamation point. I have transitioned from a disheartened parent to a proud parent and community member of the Santa Fe Public Schools and the Pinon family. I also want to say thank you to the staff that worked with us to achieve such success. Again, many thanks for your support. It means the world to us and all the students that use the playground daily. We are grateful to your commitment to Santa Fe Public Schools and specifically Pinon Elementary School. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your involvement and commitment to your school and the parents as well, because what we find, and I think everyone up here would agree, where parents are involved, schools and kids succeed. And Pinon has just been a shining star for the district as long as I can remember. So Ms. Devoti, also, I saw you here earlier. There you are. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Mr. President, just
Of course.
also Teresa and I used to work together, so I don't know how she could be so mean, but she actually did an excellent job as our finance director for Santa Fe County. Excellent job, and thank you, parents, for coming and staying and coming and telling us thank you every once in a while. Or thanking Board Member Price, because sometimes we just hear about you guys, but it means a lot to me actually to come in for you guys to come and say thank you for what Board Member Price has done for her school. Thank you.
And is there anyone that didn't have the opportunity to sign up for public forum? Because speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item in the agenda, which is the union update. And thank you for being here tonight. And parents and kids, thanks. There goes the room. You sure you don't want to stay? You sure you don't want to stay because there's refreshments later? No, they're not. I'm kidding. All right. Have a wonderful night. Safe drive home. What? No, I don't want any more people to. Because I know. Great. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Yvette Martinez, and I'm the vice president of our local union, NEA Santa Fe. I'm here for Grace, in place of Grace. She was not able to be here today, so she sent me with some of the update. And so good evening to the board and superintendent and executive team. And so I don't have the 3-minute limit. That's the first for me.
No, there's that new thing where it's only 2.5.
Oh, man.
No, you just take all the time you need. Just
okay,
be nice.
So I am a parent still of the Santa Fe Public Schools, and with all the good news, I just wanted to throw in there that, my son's at Mandela, and they just competed over this last weekend in a Destination Imagination competition. They take a project, and they did well. I know his little team did place first, eligible for state, so just more good news for y'all. So the updates for the union is basically there's a Peggy Jones Memorial Scholarship that the union's sponsoring. It's for members of the union to apply for a $300 scholarship if they're in classes to further their education, etc. That deadline's 3/15, and it could be extended. We're still hoping that there will be more applications. So that's called the Peggy Jones Memorial Scholarship. And then there's also the ESP of the month, which is being sponsored by NEA. It's on your website, so we appreciate that. It's down toward the bottom with New Senda is honoring a teacher of the month every month, and so we decided to also include an ESP to acknowledge. They're so important to our schools and to our teachers, so we wanted to throw that in there. So if you know people, you can
I'm sorry,
go.
what's ES? I know most of the acronyms, but I don't
It's
know
the
that one.
educational support professionals.
Got it.
Yes.
'Cause I know there's
And
no
actually, one of our ESPs, Vivian, and I can't think of her last name. She won ESP. She was recognized as ESP of the Year by the NEA state this year. So she's here in Santa Fe, and so they get a gift certificate from NEA. And again, the New Senda is sponsoring the Teacher of the Month. Other than that, just the legislative update. And there's obviously a lot going on for educators in the legislation this year. And the most specific one that was mentioned to me to bring to your attention, I believe it's SB 22, which is the early childhood department, establishing a department for them, and that districts will be able to apply for an extended school year extension for some students, and that would directly involve negotiations with the CBA, et cetera. So there's a lot of information on NEA New Mexico website. That's one resource, and of course the legislature's website has all the information you could want. I'm still trying to climb that learning curve myself. I do teach 8th grade at Milagro Middle School and have been teaching science for 20 years. So that's my background. But those are the main updates she wanted me to share with you. And I've never done this before, so I don't know how it works beyond that.
Well, well done. Did
Okay.
anybody on the board have any questions for Yvette tonight? Thanks very much for being
Thanks.
here.
Have a good
Appreciate
evening.
it. The next item on the agenda is moving to consent. Having looked over this, I guess, over the weekend, y'all, does any of you have items that you wish to discuss individually or pull for a separate vote?
Mr. President, I have some questions on item 8C, actually 8B.
8B, okay, but anything for a separate vote, does anybody have? Board? Anybody have anything for a separate vote? Okay. And so you said 8B?
Christie, 8B, actually, so on the third item down, what is, Superintendent, staff, what is the district-wide locations on-call security services?
Those are if there is an emergency in the evening or when we don't have staff or on the weekend. We do have on-call emergency service staff that go and check an alarm maybe that's been tripped, or it can be a variety of issues, but it's after hours on-call.
And then can somebody explain to me what the fifth item is, which is Capitol High School Construction Manager at Risk Early Work Package for $1.2 million?
Christy, please. Ms. Wagner.
Good evening, Board President, Board Members, Superintendent. This contract is the early work package for Phase 2 of Capitol High School facility improvements. This includes improvements to their science labs and the rebuilding of the dance room. This is early work so that they can start pre-ordering for the summer project.
Thank you. And then the one right under that, early college opportunities, contractors shall provide survey services.
Board President, Board Members, Superintendent Garcia, Secretary Garcia. We're beginning the master planning for the construction and the priority phasing of the Early College Opportunities Campus. One of the first steps is to survey the campus so that we can look at utilities, site ingress and egress, and in the overall master plan. So this survey will help with the master plan.
So, Mr. President, Superintendent, isn't $60,000 kind of quite high to actually have somebody perform a survey?
This is a competitive bid. We're accustomed to getting surveying companies in, and so this is within a reasonable price given all the needs on the campus.
So if this is actually a bid, how come it has CES in front of it? It says Wilson and Company. CES is actually, we don't have to go out to bid. That's actually state contract, correct?
Sure. So, Board President, Board Members, Superintendent Garcia, Secretary Garcia, CES competitively bids and qualifies all of their contractors before sending them to the district for us to hire them. And so they've done that vetting process and made sure that we're getting competitive prices for the services being provided.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to nitpick this to death, but just $60,000 for just a basic plain survey. Does that include a topographic survey? Does that include any elevations? Does it actually include utility easements? Does it actually include placements of where the buildings are located at, or is it just a plain survey-based boundary survey?
Board President, Board Members, Superintendent Garcia, Secretary Garcia, this survey will be inclusive of all needs that you've mentioned in order to master plan the site. So this is really important, key critical information. We've reviewed the scope, we've reviewed the contract. We believe it to be competitive with the pricing they've given to us.
So once again, it actually does include all the improvements on the property, right?
This will help us guide all of the master planning, so the utility locations, building locations, topo, everything we need to drive our master plan. So this will give us that sort of inside information we need to move the project forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions about consent calendar? Ms. Noble.
Thank you. Just a comment, really, and I know these are reviewed and scored, but it is great to see on the E-rate services and the switches that we're buying locally. I was very pleased to see that the winning proposals were both from local companies. So I think we've come a long way in New Mexico in terms of our capacity to do IT infrastructure, and this is really encouraging.
Great. Any other comments on items on consent? On the minutes or anything? We're good? Okay, so we're going to entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
And I'll go ahead and second. We'll do a roll call on this. So Board Member Price?
Yes.
Ms. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Garcia? Ms. Cashman?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so consent passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, board update and follow-up. Do we have anything that we want to update and or follow up on? Not sure if this should be board. I'll wait for board announcements. Okay, so we're good there. And superintendent update and follow up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I'd like to do an update regarding the ETN election. You know, it's been a real learning experience for everyone who has had a mail-in election. There is no precedent for that. We have absentee elections, but not a mail-in election of this type. Santa Fe County used the same process as they do for absentee. What I want to say is to thank you to all the voters that have participated, way over probably, by the time we're done, 27,000 most likely that will have voted. But whether we win this election or lose this election, there's a couple of things that became very apparent to me, and that is our need to better communicate with the broader public in terms of what we do in the schools. And to that end, I have created a superintendent's election steering committee. Carl Luff has agreed to chair that committee. And the purpose of that committee is to engage community leaders from and diverse community leaders from around the city to, if we win the election, to help us communicate more broadly, how do we use those funds? What are we doing in education technology? And it could be later on for other elections. If we don't win, then this community group will start working with us early because we have to educate about what we do. Typically, on an ETN election, we've had about 9,000 voters plus, and they're usually people that are connected with the schools. If we went back and analyzed the voter registry, I bet that we would be able to identify a lot of people that were connected with the Santa Fe Public Schools. We have voters that participate in this election that don't necessarily have a relationship, or even people who voted that don't understand how we use technology, that feel perhaps that we have dehumanized education or too much screen time and those sorts of things. And so we need to engage people in what we're doing so they can actually see it in practice in different ways. And, you know, what I want to say to the board, if we do not win this election, my recommendation to you will be that we go forward in November. And it will be, again, an unprecedented election because there are no analytics, really, in terms of what happens when you bring out and combine all these local elections together. But what is clear to us all is that we will need to educate a broader electorate because we cannot rely on the people that just know who we are and that partner with us and that are engaged in knowing what happens in the schools. The other piece that I think we will have to look at if we do have to go back for this election, and the reason that I want the public to understand why we would go back is that, first of all, this is not a bells and whistles kind of election. Educational technology and how it's integrated in our schools is integral to the educational process. A lot of the content, textbooks, are provided digitally. It is so important that I would recommend to you, obviously it's a board decision, it's not one you're making tonight by any means, but that we do go back in November. The other piece, and Neil Weaver is here, and as is Dr. Ryan, who may want to say a few words attached to my comment if they choose to, but the ballot, and I know that we've been told it's legalese and straight from the statute, and this is what it needs to be. I'm not 100% sure. And so we are going to get some additional legal opinion on it, because not only was it confusing about the creation of debt, and I would venture that that language has to stay there, but this talked about expansion or of existing properties, buildings, and personal property necessary or advisable to house, otherwise modify of any tools listed in paragraph 1. That really confused a lot of people. We weren't building anything new. We weren't expanding property, etc. So it's going to take a massive educational effort, and it's not one that we can do by ourselves. We have to engage the community in a meaningful way. I want to thank Carl Luff. I think a lot of you know Carl. He is chair of the audit committee. He has agreed to chair the superintendent's election steering committee. And I do believe that win or lose, we are going to go back and educate more about it, because it's important that our electorate know more about what's happening in our schools. And Tom, was there anything you wanted to add to this that I may have left out, or Neil? We did, I do, the hotline. So Neil had a hotline that started around February 1st. And we have the data. We'll have a presentation for you later on of a breakdown of what we learned about the election. But what I do want to tell you about it is that we found out how much voters did not know about this. The ballot was confusing, or they didn't get ballots. We do know that there were 5,000 that were sent back as undeliverable. And in a close election, which ETN has been, closer than our other ones, it has passed, but closer than our other elections, 5,000 votes could make a difference. We think it might be as high as 7,000. But just real quick, Neil, would you share, please, Mr. Weaver, what we basically got from the hotline that I thought was a real eye-opener?
I'm sorry, I thought I was on. We created an ETN hotline so that people could call and answer, ask questions. From February 2nd until continuing through today, we had over 90 calls. And while they were varied in nature, they were classified into 4 primary categories. The biggest and most frequent was 32%, and it was about the questions of will taxes increase and confusing language on the ballot. So creation of a new debt versus Santa Fe Public Schools is saying that your taxes will not increase. The second biggest category was ballot delivery issues. Up until today, I was even receiving calls from people from residents who stated they had not received a ballot. What could they do? We, of course, were sending them in the direction of the county clerk's office at 102 Grant Avenue. We have some examples from people we know. One of my digital learning coaches who lives in an apartment received 8 ballots, not all addressed to herself, obviously, in an apartment mailbox. So we know that that's an issue. I had calls from, for instance, a family of 4, all registered voters. 2 of the registered voters received their ballots. The other 2 did not. So we know, and as Dr. Garcia pointed out, we had at least 5,000 ballots that were returned. And I'm sorry, Dr. Ryan says that it's 7,000. And those were ballots that were returned, and there were certainly some that may have ended up in the garbage that were delivered to the wrong location. The last big category was around communication, just in that we had callers who stated, you know, I haven't heard anything about this, and we feel that having to reach every single resident and stakeholders communicate and want to receive their communications in different manners. So while we were in print media, while we were on radio, while we were in TV and social media and all of those different types of things, we still believe that we could do a better job reaching our voters. And the last category was other, just, you know, people called to ask about our one-to-one project. How are we managing that? You know, do we monitor what students do? What's our breakage rate? All the way to when does spring break start?
So we will be presenting to you soon. Dr. Ryan, just any quick other things you want to say before we go on?
President Carrillo, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, the other thing that came out of that is, as Neil went through what was in the election, we had people say, I'm voting for it, or they said, I wish I would have known before I voted for this. So, and
it was odd that people called after they voted. You know, it was really interesting.
And it wasn't one. I mean, there were several people that were still concerned, and they were appreciative that we had a hotline that, I mean, Neil was taking calls at 9 o'clock at night on the weekend. So they appreciated having somebody that could explain this to them, even though a lot of this was already on the website. I have to say the staff has done late night all over the place. Neil, Mr. Weaver, has done an outstanding job in the election. I just appreciate all the efforts he and the whole team has done in getting people to be aware of, adapting the we adapted the website as soon as we got information that somebody wanted something new. We would put that up there to make sure that that data was as fresh as possible, and that we were doing our best to communicate to our public.
But we thank you, Dr. Ryan. But again, just for the people that may be watching or those that are monitoring from the media, I did an interview, just so you know, with KOAT this afternoon, and I was asked, you know, so if it doesn't pass, what's your plan? And I said, whether it passes or doesn't, whether it passes or not, we are moving forward with this election steering committee, because we have to, even if we pass it, we have people out there that don't understand what we're doing, and we think that's very important. And I said I will be recommending to the board that we come back in November, and the reason that I would is because the kids need the services. It is that important. I don't have to think about it and ponder, well, should we do this or not? Should we come back in 2 years? I definitely feel a need to recommend that to you. And that concludes my update.
Okay, so on the subject, then I have questions, and I think what KOATV may have meant is not how we are going to approach maybe elections differently, but what is many questions here. What is our funding gap going to be? How long will we have that funding gap? And what is our plan to make up that funding gap prior to whatever election we have in November and funds being received after November?
So I will respond to that. We lost $11 million for this year, It was supposed to be a 5-year note for $11 million a year. So that funding gap, we can't make up. Even when we go in November, that's the only reason we went to a mail-in election. If we had not had a funding gap, I would never recommend a mail-in election. We can't
Right.
reach that many voters. And so what in terms of what we're going to do budget-wise, it is very, very difficult. I can't tell you specifically at this moment, but I can tell you that, one, I don't know what our budget's going to be, but the way that the budget looks right now from the state, the 20-some million that we expect to get is all categorical, whether it's early childhood education, whether it's at risk, whether it's raises. And we still have declining enrollment and all those factors. So there really isn't wiggle room in the operational budget to pick this up. So, it's going to be probably layoffs or, people will apply for other jobs within the district. But in terms of the program as we know it for that year, I do not believe that we will be able to continue it. And Mr. Ryan, Dr. Ryan, if you want to add to that.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I want to stop there because I think it's hard sometimes for people to understand how money flows in and out of the district, right? So when we have this, and I agree that the language in this was just horrific. And our council said it's by statute, and we'll see what we can do to change it. But, because he said you're not allowed to message was the word he used.
And we would never say it doesn't raise taxes.
No, I understand that.
Probably better legally.
But so when we have something that's $11 million a year for 5 years, and I'm cautiously optimistic as well, but if we're going to be pragmatic stewards of our money and looking forward, then you're always planning for what if. And if we're not planning for what if, then I don't think we're doing our jobs. And so I would say, when is the gap? So we're funded right now through fiscal year, correct me if I'm wrong, through this fiscal year, so July 30 for us, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so the gap would then be from July 1 to July 30 the following year. And if we do something in November, which I always think we should, frankly, I think we should just do what we need to do as a board since the legislature gives us the right to do so, but that's a whole nother subject. So that means, what are we going to do to replace that 11 million that we may lose from July 1 to June 30. And so what I'd be interested as a board member in hearing, maybe in the next, in the meeting in March 26th, I think we said it was, what's our plan? Because we're going into budget right now, so we have all of these things that we have to think about. And now, if we should not prevail, in addition to the loss of these funds. And for me personally, we cannot on any level cut back on our digital learning plan, because that would be, I see your hand, that would be directly cheating kids, right? And so we're going to have to find another way other than cutting back on the technology. And so, and I know it's a very difficult thing that we may have to face, but I'm thinking that for me personally, and I will likely not be in this chair then, but I'd like to hear a plan on the 26th of March as to what we're going to do, because we could very well be facing this. Ms. Cashman.
I understand and I hear what you're saying. I'm saying this is going to pass tonight, and so we don't need a plan, and we don't need to bring what if. That can happen tomorrow morning. I'm sure most of us have thought about it, but right now we need to be positive and say we're thanking the voters of Santa Fe for passing this. We have confidence. They've supported us educationally in the past. I have faith that they will continue to support. And if something changes, then I'll think about it at 9 o'clock tonight when it changes. But right now, let's try to be positive and give some good energy. And again, you've got a half an hour to get to 102 Grant Street. If you didn't vote and you said, I should have voted, get out and vote yes. And we can say that because we're board members. So let's be positive, and we can worry about all the different scenarios tomorrow morning.
Mr. Garcia, you had your hand up.
I also agree with board member Cashman. It's all this thing up here. We understand our fiduciary responsibility up here. It's not, we're not going to forget about the budget, but I think we should just move forward and know what is. Obviously, the superintendent's going to need to come with a plan if the news isn't good after 9 o'clock, but I think we should just move forward and see what happens after 9 o'clock.
Ms. Noble.
And I guess, we have quite a bit of work to do in building our budget. As Dr. Garcia mentioned, the funding and what we will face from the legislature, which is getting closer to being solid, but of course it's not finished yet. It seems it'll be pretty different this year in terms of how we build the budget, and I do think I'm with Vice President Cashman. I am optimistic. I believe that the voters of Santa Fe want to support the schools, and I think we have, it's all things at once, that we do have a lot of work to do with building the budget, and I hope that as we go forward with that, with whatever outcome, that we, as ever, outline a clear process and approach to how we do that budget, given that we will be facing a lot of new circumstances and categorical funding and those things. And most of all, I really just want to thank the staff of the district, because I know there's been a lot of nervousness around this. I think we're all feeling it tonight on some level, but everybody has worked incredibly hard, and I think it's been really admirable what this team has done in really uncertain conditions, because as Dr. Garcia said, we have no precedent. Everybody around the state is learning about this. We saw, of course, what happened in Albuquerque, and I appreciate all of the adjustment on the fly that has gone on from the Santa Fe Public Schools team. So thank you to everyone who has rolled up your sleeves and dug in and really made an effort to get the information out there on this bond. And we do have 24 more minutes, and I've been saying it is vote yes, but actually technically it's voting for, because when you fill out the ballot, that's what you vote. So thank you to everybody who has been involved with this. I know it's been a lot of hard work.
Board Member Price.
I just want to, I'm not going to belabor it, but I also want to thank all of you who worked so very, very hard on this. And I also am having trouble speaking this evening, so that cuts down on what I have to say. But I do want to thank you all for the extremely hard work you did on this. I've been very impressed. Thank you so very much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't want you to think that just because I'm critical of things and have questions, that in somehow I'm not grateful. I don't think I need to, what? I'm speaking now, thank you. So I want the staff to know that, I always am grateful. At the same time, I may have questions that represent challenges or otherwise. And I think that I express my gratitude on a very regular basis. And you know that. I'm very nervous about tonight, given what's gone on in our state, and especially with Albuquerque, and what we may face very well in the next 30 days. Okay. So is there anything else, because it was the ETN, and we have it later on the agenda as well. Harvey, Mr. McGinnis.
Would it be possible in an election like this going forward to send students home with supplemental materials?
If it was done without any district resources whatsoever, because that's one of the challenges we have, is we can tell people to vote, or the district can tell people to vote, but not have any messaging in that saying to vote. So it really needs to happen. I mean, I think if honestly kids were to organize themselves, no district email, not even a copy machine, nothing, because they'll come back to us and they'll say we're electioneering. But I think that's an excellent idea, to utilize student bodies and things of that nature, provided they're not using any district resources whatsoever.
Okay.
And that is student-led.
Student-led, yeah, we can't.
We as a board can say.
Thank you.
It's a tough one. Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a question, because you may know the answer to this, Dr. Garcia. If in fact it's determined that by statute this has to read because it does read as though it's an increase. And so many people came to me and said, why do you need $55 million more to build more, right? Is that legislative to change the language that is in election ballots? Or what can we do in the future so that a ballot does not read like this?
This is what I want to research. You know, we took it at face value that it had to be a certain way. I'm not certain of that anymore. So we will be researching to be legal, to be transparent, but also not to have language in there. You know, the creation of debt may have to be there. I will grant you that one. But I don't know about the other pieces. That was very confusing. People couldn't understand why we're talking about building new buildings or modifying buildings, you know, which is not the intent of this election. So we will work on that. And then also, I think people just don't understand how technology is used. I think they think kids aren't talking to each other, or that teachers aren't talking to kids. The kids are just, you know, using screen time. And you well know, and being in the classroom, that that's not like you're just glued to your Chromebook and you're not interacting with other students. And so it's about educating the public about that.
Thank you. Anything else on this topic?
No, not at all.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the action PNM easement, item 11A. My 11A does not, I don't have it either.
Ruth, how can that be?
Well, my election A actually has something that should be in 11B. But so I don't have any language on that. Does anybody else have language on the PNM easement in 11A?
See, I'm sorry, I don't know why that was not moved.
Okay.
So,
Madam Chair, Mr. President, we've already heard this before. I'd like to make a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there a superintendent or staff, if you could just, for the sake of the audience and the record, just briefly explain what it is and why we're doing it.
our Chief Operations Officer, actually Associate Superintendent Wagner.
Board President Creel, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, this action item, PNM easement for underground lines at Aspen Community School, will provide PNM with access to our relocated lines for them to service in the future. So as a part of the Phase 3 construction, we're moving the lines out from underneath some buildings, but they'll still need access via an easement. This is a standard request, and we recommend approval so we can have service to our services in the future.
Terrific. There's been a motion and a second. Additional questions on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Next item is the first reading to amend Policy 103. And then this is as a result, and this is happening all over the state, where, and I know our council and our attorneys, board attorneys, represent districts all over the state. We're all going through this, having to change policy to match up with what the new election law is. So you can look at the language on B, 11B, and Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'm going to turn this over to General Counsel Lisa Sullivan.
Good evening, Board President Carrillo, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia. This proposed amendment to Policy 103 simply brings the policy up to date in line with House Bill 98 from 2018. So instead of the reorganization date being in March, the language is now during the month that a new term for any board member begins, whether the board member was re-elected or newly elected following an election under the Local Election Act. The rest of the language remains the same.
Okay. Mr. Garcia.
In issues 2 following state requirements, move for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great. And any additional discussion? I mean, essentially, we're doing what the state didn't. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. So the changes in the language on 103. This is the first reading, isn't it? It'll be brought back to us on the 26th for finalization. All right. Next item is the reorganization of board members, which typically we'll do after an election or in March. And this is where we will elect new officers of the board. So what we did, if you'll remember, I think it was at a study session though last time, because I remember being down there. And this was approved by council. We did it by not so secret ballot, where we wrote our vote independently down, passed them down, and in terms of who you were voting for in these offices, one at a time, and then they had to be read aloud, because there has to be a record of who voted how. You're furrowing your brow. Do you remember? I remember we did that. Yeah, we did that. Yes, Ms. Price.
Yeah, I remember we did that, and I talked with some lawyers about this, who specialize in education, and they said that was probably illegal.
Okay. Well, our
That we
council
should-
said it
because-
complied with the
because-
Open Meetings Act.
No?
I mean,
Okay.
our own council.
Yeah,
Tony and, right.
I'm just saying,
Okay.
you get two lawyers, you get three opinions.
As I recall, Mr. President,
Yeah.
you did that when you were electing Mr. Garcia.
We did voice.
In having spoken with our council, no, this is perfectly legal. The main point has to be that it can't be a secret ballot. The public needs to know how we ended up voting for everything. So for instance, if we were nominating somebody here, we'd take a vote on that, you'd just write it down, pass it down, and if there were three, that person would be elected to that position, and we would read off everyone's ballot. Yes, Mr. Garcia?
Sorry, Mr. President, are you asking us to go that route?
Well, we are going to,
Well, if there's not three people that want to go down that road, then we can just actually make a motion from the floor here, and then we can take a vote and see who gets the vote, who doesn't get the vote.
but then what happens is, and this is why we did it different, but this is why we did it differently the last time. I mean, whatever pleases the board, that's totally fine with me. But the challenge with that is when you announce someone, automatically, depending on, people can be swayed one way or another. If two votes have been cast and it's been done vocally, somebody may vote one way or not another way just based on what they've heard already. Whereas if you're writing it on down, I mean, it's not going to be a secret. We're all going to know how people voted. And that's the requirement of the Open Meetings Act, and that's what our council told us. But it allows there to be more, as the actual ballot is taking place, not to have anybody swayed unnecessarily by the direction it may be going. Ms. Cashman.
I would like us to first see who's interested. I mean, we may not have a lot of candidates for these positions.
There's only 5 of us.
I know, and so that we may not have a lot. So who's interested? And then we can just take a voice vote. But I would remember and just try to, I know that a lot of us have a lot of things going on in our lives. So, if you're interested in a position, that you have the time to devote to the position. But I would just say, do we have anyone that's interested in being president? And then we can vote that way.
So in terms of procedurally, does everyone just want to go? That's fine with me. It doesn't matter. I'm just, Board Member Price.
Board Member, Vice President Cashman, I think we should just go ahead and nominate, and if the person doesn't want the position, they can just say so. They can just say, I don't want.
Well, why I thought, if you're interested, it just saves us a little bit of time, but, I can go either way, but.
So is what I'm hearing, you don't want to just do the write it down, pass, is that what I'm hearing basically generally? Head nods, yes? Okay, we won't do that then. So then, let's just move right now, Office of the President. I would continue in this role. I don't think the board wants me in this role. I know that you're very challenged by my outspokenness in some ways, but I would say that I'm at the legislature constantly. I'm at public events constantly. I have the time to devote to the position. I think I'm a very positive public figure for the district, and I would hope that you don't let your emotional feelings toward me get in the way of my service. Because that's the way I feel this is going to go, and that's fine with me as well, because I'm the same person no matter where I sit on this dais. And, but I would like to continue being the representative for the board at the legislature, at state meetings, and if you're so inclined, terrific. And if not, I will humbly move down and sit with my friends Harvey and Mercedes. Board Member Price.
I would like to nominate, excuse me, I'm having troubles. I would like to nominate Kate Noble for president.
Second.
Do you have anything to say? You don't have to.
I am interested. I feel that this is an important job, as is every position on the board, and I am ready, willing, and able to work in a different capacity than I currently do. And I would really love to lead this board, think about our agendas, and work more closely with the superintendent, whom I think is doing a wonderful job.
There's a motion and a second. So all those in favor?
Aye.
And I'm opposed. So Kate, you are going to be our new chair. Congratulations. And that'll take place, the transition, we're not going to switch a bunch of seats right now. If it's okay, we'll just do all that on March 26th. Terrific. My concern, no, we're good. And so Office of the Vice President, nominations? Ms. Cashman.
I would be willing to step down if somebody else wants to do it. I've been vice chair for 2 years now, so if somebody wants to do it, if not, I could serve again.
Mr. President.
Hold on. I would like to also, you know, I know that Ms. Noble and I have sometimes been in conflict, but I know that I could be a trustee, what would it be, like private to your corporal or sergeant, or whatever it might be, because I know, I would say when there are times you can't attend things, I know that I would, and I would say that, that I would serve as your vice president in that capacity if it was the board's desire. Mr. Garcia, you were.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Board Member Price for Vice President.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And is there a discussion? Yes, Ms. Price.
I'm, as you know, you all know, I've been health challenged, but I am improving, and so yes, I would like to be the vice president, and I will be able to do more than I have in the past year or so.
Terrific. And any more discussion on vice president, the nomination for Ms. Price? No, I withdraw my nomination. So, my nominating myself. So, all those, what? Just raise your hand and use your mic.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's okay that you put your nomination up, so I don't have an objection.
But I know the writing on the wall, so I'm just interested in moving forward. And so let's go ahead and take the vote then on Ms. Price for Vice President. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. I'm opposed. And so Ms. Price is going to be the Vice President by a vote of 3-2. And the next item is, or the next position then is the Secretary. And so I'm fine with Mr. Garcia serving. What's the pleasure of the board? Is there someone you want to nominate for secretary? Ms. Price.
I would like to second Mr. Garcia for.
I don't know that there was a first.
Oh, I thought you nominated him.
No, I'm just.
You asked him.
Oh, I said I'd be fine with that, but I'm just.
All right, I nominate Mr. Garcia as secretary.
I'll go ahead and second. Any discussion or anyone else that would like the post? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. So on March 26th, and let the stationery reflect it and all the different things that you guys have to do, reflect that the president coming up will be Ms. Kate Noble, the vice president will be Ms. Lorraine Price, and the secretary will be Mr. Rudy Garcia. Next item on the agenda is election results. This is a short meeting, so I don't know that we're going to have anything by now. But if anybody's monitoring what's going on at the clerk, if they have an idea of how many people have voted as of this moment, that would be cool. And if not, that's okay too.
Mr. Carrillo, Ms. Sullivan will be the person that will be getting the information from the county, and as of such, they said we won't have anything right now.
Okay. What is their expectation on when? So we're moving to board discussion, and I have stuff on this. So what's their expectation on when they're going to have results?
Ms. Sullivan, do you want to just share what we were told, but don't take that to the bank?
The hope was that they will have counted enough ballots since they started on Thursday in order to give us a rough estimate after polls close. However, if there were a number of ballots received in the last short time span and walk-in votes, then they really wouldn't want to give us an inaccurate number. They may contact us in a couple of hours with a rough estimate. So if they feel pretty certain of the rough estimate, they'll let us know tonight. Otherwise, they'll wait.
Okay, so what I heard you say is they started counting votes on Thursday.
Yes.
Right? And so obviously, I'm just going to use 30,000 as a number. If there were 30,000 votes cast and there are already 19,000 votes for, there's not going to be 4,000 people walking into the county clerk's office in the next 20 minutes. So they could say, just as the networks do, we could, with great confidence, call this election in this direction. Are they willing to do that shortly after 7 o'clock, or do they want to wait until all ballots have been in and counted?
I believe if there is a more likely than not chance that the rough estimate will be upheld, then they will be willing to give us that information.
Earlier rather than later?
Correct.
Okay. So then on election results here, we know now from Dr. Ryan that there are roughly 7,000 ballots that didn't make it to their prescribed voters. Is that just correct or incorrect?
Correct.
Great. What are we planning to do as a district if this vote ends up being within 4,000? Are we, that's a huge, to me anyway, I don't know about you guys, faux pas, error, blunder, massive incompetence on the part of someone or some division when you have 7,000 ballots returned. And especially in an election where we have so much at stake. So is there a plan? And I don't care about the money. If we're spending another 100,000 to save 11 million, it makes sense. Is there a plan to contest this election if that's what it looks like in terms of these ballots?
So, Mr. President, members of the board, we'll have to see what the election results look like, and then we will probably, confer with outside counsel and bring a recommendation to the board.
Okay. For me personally, I would say if it's within that margin, then I think it is incumbent upon us in protecting our school and our kids to take legal action. So it's not 9 o'clock. It was there for election results. That's why we're not going to have results. So next item on board discussion is the eco-curriculum. So the superintendent and I talked about this in our meeting on Friday because of the article that appeared the previous Monday where, and it may have been misquoted, who knows what, but it gave the impression that, sure, our kids are learning history. We're talking about automotive history. We're talking about, these different things. And I read the article, and I figured if I read it that way, somebody else had to have. Really? What about U.S. history? What about European history? Not just the history of the automobile. And so it made me really wonder, how is civics being taught at ECO? How are the different science curricula with core standards, Common Core, being taught at ECO? And so Dr. Garcia said, I'm glad you asked that question, because she kind of read the article. It was just so nebulous the way it was written, and it left too many things open to question. So how do we make sure that the Common Core is delivered at ECO?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to ask Assistant Superintendent Gephardt to come to the podium. He's worked very closely with the principal and the staff of the school. And as I discussed with you in the meeting, I can assure you that we are delivering the Common Core standards. But Mr. Gephardt, would you like to elaborate, please?
Sure, Board President Carrillo, members of the board, Superintendent. So the ECO has a foundation in career tech, or the old VOTech, and that's true. But the core programming that the students receive is college prep, academically rigorous, English language arts, math tied to the Common Core, social studies tied to the New Mexico State social studies standards, and science tied to the next gen science standards. And one of the things that we take great pride in is the fact that the students are receiving that academically rigorous college prep core, which will provide them the opportunities. And one of the best quotes in the article was that student who said it's about opportunities. It's in the name, early college opportunities. That academically rigorous college prep core that is tied to those standards is essential if students are going to have those future opportunities. It's not just about turning the wrench or swinging the hammer. The students are learning those skills, but they're obtaining that college prep core in English language arts, math, science, and social studies. I believe we have one of the best social studies teachers in Santa Fe, and Jake Zagella, who was highlighted in an article about a month or two ago in the Santa Fe New Mexican, and on how he's teaching those things like civics and government.
Wasn't Jake the one who had the project that went to the Capitol? Right, I'm forgetting
Yes,
what it was
sir.
called, but it was
the
tremendous.
mock peace conference
The mock,
for World
yes.
War I, yes.
Great. Well, that's why I had this on, just because of the way I filed those questions, I felt like others could have. And then when Dr. Garcia and I discussed it, because I brought in the article, she said, you're right, we probably should just really make sure that the public understands what it is we're doing on the Old South Campus and how kids are learning. So.
And we do want to thank the Santa Fe New Mexican for bringing attention to the Early College Opportunities High School and what we're doing there.
Terrific. And any other questions or anything about ECO or the curriculum at ECO? The next item is there because of emails that I've received over the years. Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Noble.
Just a
President-elect Noble.
There we go. Just a comment, which is to say that I think sometimes history can be very valuable through a particular lens. And the history of the automobile is a significant history. And I will always say that I think I learned the most about this country by learning New York history in college, because of course New York is a city through which a lot of immigrants have passed, a lot of industry has happened, a lot of cultural movements have begun or gained momentum. And so it doesn't just have to be generic history. Through a lens, it sometimes can be more accessible, and I really appreciate what's going on at ECO. And like I said, I mean, after our presentation, I'm ready to go to ECO and get my degree there, but I really appreciate the work that's going on there.
Thank you. Any additional questions or concerns? Okay. So the next item there where it says elementary, it's too bad we don't live by an ocean. It could have said like surf and turf or something. Anyway, turf and track. And this is, if it pleases the board to make a recommendation to CRC to look into what would it take to have a Salazar, everyone here knows Salazar School, the property, right? So they have a small bit of turf and a small track that goes around it and 2 small soccer goals, right? And other elementaries look at Salazar and say, why the heck can't we have that? And when we look at like Pinon, and there are some schools, I mean, Wood Gormley, just by nature of it being there 100 years or however, there's a park across the street, so they have grass. Probably one of the only places left that's going to be grass in Santa Fe Public Schools, right? Real grass. And so, I mean, the question has been posed to me over the years by parents at Atalaya and now parents at Kearney, and why can't we have just a little patch of turf and a little oval and 2 soccer goals? And yes, it's expensive, but I know the response that was given to, I know one parent was, you know, they're $1.5 million. That's the full size, obviously, competitive turf and everything that's going to be at a high school. But I mean, I think that's something that we should have CRC look into. It'll cut down on certainly a lot of bruising and cuts and scrapes if there's turf, and it'll just make playing outside maybe all that much more enjoyable. Ms. Cashman.
We talked about this before, and I brought what I thought the board had agreed to CRC, is that the board was not directing CRC to look to go ahead and put track or turf at each elementary school, but to look at it for the future bond cycle.
Right.
So I think that's on the radar for CRC, but not to reprogram any money right now for it, but to look at the coming bond, how we would proceed. Am I correct in that? I see my other person nodding his head, so.
All right, so is that on the CRC agenda to kind of price out what that would look like for 2021, both in cost and implementation, or is it not?
You know, CRC has not started to look at the next bond yet for 2021.
But I would also say that we don't have to look at 2021 bond to do some research around exploring what would is this even feasible? You know, let's face it, there's a lot of places in the country, I would imagine like in really arid places that they just simply don't have the money or the weather for grass or turf. Ms. Price.
We can certainly take it to the CRC if that's, you know, and ask them.
I mean, if I'm the only one that's curious, then I'll just tell the parent, hey, there's 4 other members that just don't share your sentiment. No, I know you didn't, but that's what I'm saying. No, I would love it if, me personally, I would love it if you and Ms. Cashman were to go to CRC and just get information around this to see if it's even worthy of moving forward. Did you have your hand up, or I'm not?
Mr. President, I'm interested in what your proposal is. Definitely, and kids in my district actually love to play soccer, and I'm sure throughout the district they love to play soccer. And the track at Salazar is actually an excellent looking track. They even have a community type garden there. So I'd be interested in actually not directing the Citizens Review Committee to, yeah, just I guess we can ask them, and they could ask staff to see what it actually does cost for, and what schools do not have that, and what it would cost. And then as soon as we get to the next portion of what we're going to place on the bond, then I guess we can talk about it a little bit more in depth.
Is there general agreement just to start researching it and just, great. All right.
Superintendent, do you know if, can we ask if, yeah, but we go through,
So-
no, I'm not talking about the CRC, I'm talking about senior staff.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, Associate Superintendent Wagner. My understanding for what we're talking about is about $1 million, maybe $1 million, I don't know, I think we had discussed it. So we do know generally what, no, for one playground, for one small area. And so, and you know, so I mean, I know we've talked, we did look at your request that you sent to Mr. Romero, and I asked how much that might cost. It is more than you would think. So if this is the wishes of the board, because the CRC, you take recommendations to them, obviously it would require some reprioritization, right? Or if this is going to be in the next bond cycle. But Ms. Wagner, you had given me sort of a ballpark cost on that. Do you want to address that today?
So before Ms. Wagner addresses that, I'm sorry, but is there anyone else that wonders if the field at Santa Fe High School was $1 million or $1.1 million, how could what was at Salazar be that same price?
Mr. President, with all due respect to architects and engineers, because the next thing that's going to come forward is, oh no, you need to clear out that whole thing again and start over and put a brand new in there. Let's engineer it. That's probably why.
I mean, if it's $1 million per elementary, given our bond priorities, right? But at least we need. Would something like at Salazar really be $1 million per elementary?
Board President Creo, board members, Superintendent Garcia, just back to the original intent. I believe the CRC discussion landed in a place where we agreed to inventory our turf fields district-wide and note where we don't have turf fields and discuss possibility of expansion of turf fields in the 2021 bond. That work won't happen until the year prior to 2021. Right. We already know that we have aging turf fields in our queue that require replacement. Turf fields range in cost. It depends on if you're simply replacing an existing turf, which would be the case at Santa Fe High School, where we would correct some drainage issues and update the civil engineering to the new standard, but we simply laid new turf. That was a replacement turf, where Aspen was a complete turf installation for the first time ever over a grass field, as was Salazar. Salazar Green was a joint project. It was funded through a grant or a direct appropriation. I'd have to go back into our records to find it. It was not funded exclusively through district funds, and it was over a $1.2 million project, including all the drainage, all the civil engineering, all the retention, and the really beautiful landscaping. If you drive by Salazar Green, it is very smartly done. Salazar Green, no different than Santa Fe High School, Capitol High School, the new Milagro Field, they'll all need to be replaced. And so I think that needs to be part of the study. We will have this inventory and information available for the Citizens Review Committee. And should the district determine that that's a district standard, we could have a range of turf sizes and options for delivery. But, you know, my guess is 600 to 800,000 for a small runaround field, if that's what we're talking about. $1 million plus when you get into complex sites with retention and drainage issues. The bulk of the cost for these projects is the dirt work. So it's not the green layer we lay on the top. It's all the work that has to happen to make that turf perform for us for, 12 years. And they're complex projects. They require a lot of professional expertise and guidance. And so, we'd have to have a range, and we would not want to spend thousands of dollars going around and pricing fields for every single site. But we could have a range. A range of fields and where they're not located and what sites could maybe take given their constraints.
On that point, Mr. President, and I think in our discussion, Ms. Wagner, was that sometimes it's like the tennis court situation, right? You get into the project and then you find out, or even with Milagro, you get into the project and then you find out that you have a compaction problem or a drainage problem, and it jacks up the price of something that seemed pretty simple and innocuous.
All right. I mean, I think the board's comfortable not, just hearing what you have to say in 2020 and in 2019. Is that safe to say? Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much for considering that, because I told the constituents that reached out to me that I would definitely bring it up. Any other additional items? Should we just stay and talk till 9 o'clock when we get the results? No, I know we're not going to. President-elect Noble.
Thank you, President Carrillo. Couple quick things, and for the institutional memory on the board, President Carrillo, I believe you told me there is a policy about recess not being taken away. Is that correct?
So if you know of any school that's not doing that or combining recess with lunch or whatever, let Dr. Garcia know.
Yeah, that was one of the first things when I got here I was very concerned about.
Okay, I will. I've heard a number of reports recently, less about it being taken away and more about threatening to take it away, which strikes me as...
That's in the policy too. The threatening, non-threatening, that's in the policy.
So, Dr. Garcia, you and I can talk about this, but I'm sort of wondering about a reminder
to
the staff in the district, because I've now heard it, the BBC, we had a rule
as a discipline thing, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and also some schools at that time were combining it with lunch and then not taking anything in the afternoon or saying, we're not going to do anything in the morning, we'll let you. Yeah, no, we eliminated all that. So if there's schools that are not complying, we need to know.
I don't know if it's schools across the board or individual teachers who don't know, but I think it might be worth. On another one, and this is maybe something for us to consider, or I'm happy to bring it back, but there seems to be a huge amount of confusion as to how to excuse absences among parents and what happens. And so I'm wondering if there could be a communication, because honestly, it's on social media all the time in parent groups, sort of what's happening. There are unexcused absences. Am I going to have to talk to CYFD? And I think it's just something that, and my child was sick for an entire week recently, and we experienced it. And it has been it's like, how do we get these excused? Because we communicate with the teachers. What's the way to do it? What happens with, and I know that, you know, unexcused absences, I've had the threatening letters, I've raised it here before. I have obviously access to the superintendent in a way that a lot of parents don't, but I guess my request would be if there could be some clear communication to parents provided about excusing absences and what it means to have excused and unexcused absences.
Can we just simply have it, and I'm curious too, because I had a parent with a kid that missed a class 26 times and never did get a letter. And it was just the class that he regularly ditched. So on the next superintendent announcement on the 26th, can you address this? And then, because I would love to know too, because there seems to be that grit, what's excused, what's not? And when does it affect awards or honors that are given for attendance?
And when do I have to have a meeting? Because that was another
Yeah.
one that got a
Can we do that?
huge amount of traction on social media. When are you obligated to go sit down with the student?
Your requests under my update.
Thank you. Additional for board discussion. It's that time where, so on the 26th, I think we should put on executive session for March 26th. We have to do superintendent's evaluation, whether we're going to extend the date or whatever, but contractually it has to happen at a certain time. So let's have that in executive session, as well as superintendent's contract in executive session for March 26th. We don't, but we'll get to that on advanced planning. And because the reason is everyone's on spring break for the next, the meeting here that's scheduled on, well, it would have been the, what's 14 plus today?
14 plus is 21.
Yeah,
No,
we would
but-
have had a meeting on the 21st, but that's in the middle of spring break. And so there's not going to be a meeting, so we had suggested, or whatever the Tuesday would have been, I'm sorry, but whatever that Tuesday would have been, yeah, the 19th, because we had talked about that earlier, people aren't going to be here. So we should just have the second March meeting on the 26th, because then also the superintendent will be back. So unless there's more board discussion, can we move on to advanced planning? So then can we add, so we have a second board meeting in March, given especially everything that's going on, and a lot to report on relative to ETN, to budget, to all these things.
Probably would do, because of planning, because it takes us a bit to plan the agendas and get all the materials. So if we did do one on the 27th, we're going to turn around and do one again on the 2nd of April. So it's going to be a fairly, well, I guess what I want to ask you as you look at this, are we going to have a quorum on the 2nd? Will everybody be back from NMSBA?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think we'll all be back, yeah.
Okay. So we'll have one, but if we look at the calendar on the 27th, we're going to have another board meeting just the following week. We're going to have one, 2, 3 days later. Well, the 26th.
Well, it would be a week later.
You're going to have it a week later, yeah. Well, I just want you to be aware of that. Do you want to have 2 board meetings like that?
Well, for me personally, I think there's going to be enough to go over to warrant, I mean, especially sooner rather than later, given all of the things that are going to be happening with our district, to not wait until the 2nd of April and to do it on March 26th.
So what I'm going to tell you on the 26th, if we do our board meeting on that day, we would have probably just do a legislative update and let you know what's happened, you know, kind of what's going on with the budget, not budget planning, because we don't have lots of time, because of people being out, we don't have lots of time to prepare for that meeting on the 27th. So it would be a somewhat, you know, limited probably, and it would be a lengthy meeting. We'll have bars and all that, but it would probably be around the legislative update of what's happened and its potential impact on our budget process.
Mr. President, on the 26th, I will not be able to make the meeting. I have a county commission meeting.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I have to announce this. You ready? for 17,020 against 11,971. Thank you, Santa Fe.
Wow.
Thank you, thank you, thank
That
you
is-
from the bottom of our heart.
That
Can you
is
say that again?
Fantastic.
Yes, 17,020
So even with a mail ballot.
for 11,971. Thank you, Santa Fe. 28,991 voters. Thank you so much.
17,000 you said?
Say one more time. How many for?
17,024.
Okay.
11,971 against. 28,991 voters. They're
Yeah.
still waiting to read 116 ballots. That's not going to make any difference. Thank you, Santa
Wow.
Fe.
Yep.
My goodness.
Pretty big deal.
That's huge. That is
All I got is
huge.
like-
That is huge. Thank you.
Oh, man. What? I said cautiously optimistic.
Wow. You know,
Wow,
I
that is
haven't
fantastic.
figured out the percentage, but that was much better than we would ever
We could have
imagine.
anticipated.
And thank you, everyone that participated.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, we're still moving forward with that election steering committee because those 11,000 voters that voted against it don't know what we're doing. And we need to better communicate
Yeah.
with them on
And
that.
it sounds like some people who voted against it after they got more
Right.
information,
They liked
they
it.
probably would have voted
So
for it.
I am just
Wow.
overwhelmed and filled with gratitude to the voters of Santa Fe County. Our kids are the beneficiary. I mean, it's like yay for the staff and yay that we don't have to deal with the budget, but it's about the students and equity. And I'm almost in tears. I am so grateful to our community.
Santa Fe continues to support its public schools. And this is just where it's outstanding to live here, if only for that reason.
And
There are many
a
other
very
reasons, but
different election.
yeah. Mr. McGinnis.
Are we the only county so far that has had this election? And
No, there
and
are
it
many
comes-
around the state
No,
that
I
have
mean
done
that
mail.
has come back in our favor.
No, others, but not like this. I mean, this is almost by the margins that we had, because there were 2-1. This is almost by those margins we had on a walk-in election.
Okay.
So this is really, this is outstanding. You want to talk about unprecedented? This is fantastic. So what I'm
Back
hearing
of the
is
envelope is 59%.
the what?
Back of the envelope calculation is 59%.
That's
Wow.
that's
And
outstanding.
that's very close to the regular one that it was, wasn't it, Tom, Dr. Ryan, 60% at the last ETN?
Well, it was
It's
like
getting-
64, because usually it was like 2-1 for bond stuff for us.
But it was better for the other bonds, and then ETN was less. And what was it? Right, but for
This
this
is outstanding.
kind
Yeah.
of an election and what we had to do, I can't thank the staff. We all worked so hard on this, and I really am very emotional about it. I'm just so thrilled.
I want to thank Inez at the New Mexican. She had two incredibly
Three.
articulate,
Three.
three editorials. So
And the Journal North.
we live in a town that supports public schools, so this is a really good thing. So back to advanced planning. So it sounds like, you guys, do we want to have a meeting on March 26th or not? Just have one till 11:30 on April 2nd. Well, the agenda is going to be well, we've got stuff to move forward on. And then, so on the March 2nd, the study session on April 8th, that should be a finance committee meeting. Is that correct? So it's really important that everybody have that is not tentative, but an absolute April 8th.
The one on the 11th? Are
I'm
we
sorry?
having the one on the 11th?
No, April 8th. April
Oh, no,
8th.
not, well, let's back up here. There's a study session tentatively scheduled for the 11th of this month. Are we having that?
Not that I know of. Is there an agenda already prepared for that?
For the which day?
Study session on March 11th.
On March 11th?
It says right
On
there
Monday.
under
It
advanced
says tentative,
planning.
yeah.
No,
So
we're recommending, I mean, I'm not going to be here. and
Okay, so that's,
Yeah.
okay, so I just wanted to make sure, so,
great.
but before I cross it
Yeah,
off.
so cross it off.
Okay.
You have a CRC, you have a CRC tentative. Okay, so we're not going to have a meeting on March 26th. We're going to have our next meeting on April 2nd. Are we all agreed about that? Our next meeting is going to be April 2nd. And we are going to have an executive session because we have to put superintendent's evaluation and contract on that. Okay? Okay. Is there anything else on advanced planning?
So the Citizens Review Committee meeting, it says tentative on the 27th. Is that going to be?
I don't know, that's up to you guys on the CRC.
Ms. Wagner, are we still planning on a CRC meeting on the what's the date?
27th.
27th?
No, all right.
No? Okay, thank you. That's another one. Cross off.
So if there's no more advanced planning, the only thing that I would end with is, as always, it's an honor to serve this board. It's an honor to serve kids in our community, to have been the chair, to have worked with Dr. Garcia. And I'll continue doing everything that I've done for the last 8 years, regardless of where I sit. So I look forward to the leadership and whatever happens next. And Mr. Garcia.
Mr. President, I'd just like to also thank you for actually serving as a board president. You actually have a heart and a passion for this, for kids in the district, and it actually shows. And so appreciate you serving, as well as Vice President Cashman did a great job. Thank you both.
Thank you for your service, our officers
Quick thing
and
on
members.
advanced planning again. Is the Citizens Review Committee on the 13th is on? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Noble.
I would like to echo that. Thank you, President Carrillo and Vice President Cashman and Secretary Garcia, who will continue being Secretary, I guess, for your service. I appreciate all that everyone on this board gives to this district, and I think that we sometimes it can be difficult or emotional or anything like that, but I think we work pretty well together, and I look forward to the year.
I also like to thank the Board President Carrillo for your leadership, Vice President Cashman, Secretary Garcia, and the board members. I feel like we've done some really good work for this district and have accomplished a lot over the last year, and I look forward to working with the new officers and the board, as always. And it's my honor, and I'm humbled to serve this district. Thank you.
Terrific. We're done. Adjourned.
We won.
It's pretty amazing. And not just one, we won big. Honestly.